I've been a firefighter for nearly 15 years, and let me tell you, when that alarm bell goes off, you don't think. You just move. Every second matters. Every delay can mean a life, a home, or both going up in smoke. So when dispatch called in a house fire in our district that evening, the entire crew was already geared up and sprinting toward the engines before the words even finished echoing through the speakers. Residential fire, heavy smoke reported, possible occupants inside, the voice from dispatch crackled. We all knew what that meant. Adrenaline kicked in. Boots slammed against the floor. Helmets clicked into place. The engine roared to life, and I gripped the wheel like my life depended on it. We weren't just heading to a fire. We were racing against time. Now, the neighborhood in question wasn't new to us. It was one of those upper-middle-class suburban developments run by an HOA, homeowners association. And anyone who's ever lived near one knows exactly what that means. Endless rules about grass length, mailbox paint colors, and where you can or can't park your car. But worse than the rules are the people who enforce them like they're sheriff of the Wild West. And in this particular neighborhood, there was one woman who reigned supreme, Karen. She wasn't just a Karen. She was the Karen. President of the HOA, self-proclaimed community protector, and everyone's worst nightmare rolled into one. She was the type of person who would write a ticket for your garden gnome being too whimsical, or send a violation notice if your garbage can lid was left open for 10 minutes. We dealt with her before, usually over nonsense complaints like, your sirens are too loud at night, or your fire truck dripped water near my driveway. But tonight, I had no idea she was about to become the star of her own downfall. We flew down the main road, sirens blasting, lights flashing, until we hit the entrance to the neighborhood. And that's where it happened. A shiny white SUV sat parked directly across the access point, blocking the narrow neighborhood entrance road like a barricade. Hazard lights blinking. No driver in sight. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching, the weight of the fire truck skidding forward. "You've got to be kidding me," shouted Mike, our engineer, from the passenger seat. The crew in the back groaned. Seconds. Precious seconds were bleeding away. "Move it," I yelled, leaning on the horn, hoping whoever owned the SUV would come running out. And then, like a villain stepping into a bad movie, she appeared. Out marched Karen in her pink jogging outfit, holding a clipboard. Yes, a clipboard, like she was patrolling the gates of heaven itself. She waved her hand dramatically, signaling for us to stop, as though our sirens, flashing lights, and 50,000-pound fire truck were just some inconvenience to her evening stroll. "You can't come in here," she shouted, pointing at us like we were trespassing salesmen. "This is a private neighborhood. No emergency vehicles allowed without prior clearance." I thought I'd misheard her. My jaw literally dropped. "Ma'am, there's a fire." I barked through the open window. "Get that SUV out of the way now." But Karen stood firm, planting herself between us and the road. "I don't care if there's a fire. Rules are rules. You people damage our streets with those heavy trucks. You'll have to park outside and walk your hoses in." The crew erupted with curses. Even the rookie, who usually stayed quiet, muttered, "Is she serious right now?" Mike leaned out the passenger window. "Lady, move the car. We don't have time for this." But Karen wasn't backing down. She raised her clipboard like a shield. "No exceptions. I'll have to file a report with the HOA if you try to break through here." At that point, I had half a mind to ram her SUV right off the road. But protocol and the fact that cameras are everywhere kept me from doing something that would end my career. Instead, I slammed the horn again and radioed back to dispatch. "Engine 12 to dispatch, we're blocked at the neighborhood entrance. Vehicle obstructing access. Owner is refusing to move it." There was silence on the other end, followed by disbelief. "Did you say refusing?" "Affirmative." Karen smirked like she'd won some grand battle. She actually crossed her arms and tilted her head, clearly proud of herself for enforcing the rules. And then it happened. The universe decided to deliver poetic justice right on time. From deeper inside the neighborhood, a thick column of black smoke curled into the sky, illuminated by the orange glow of flames. The house fire wasn't some distant call, it was close. Very close. And as Karen turned around to look at the smoke, her jaw dropped. Her SUV keys slipped from her hand. Her face drained of color. Because the house that was burning wasn't some stranger's home. It was hers. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The only sound was the blare of our siren echoing against the neighborhood's walls, bouncing off the manicured hedges and white fences. Karen stood there like a statue, staring at the rising smoke as though it were some kind of optical illusion. But it wasn't. The fire was spreading fast, and time was bleeding away. I leaned out of the truck again, my patience already paper-thin. "That's your house, isn't it?" Karen didn't answer right away. She blinked, her lips twitching, her precious clipboard now clutched to her chest like it was a life vest. Then suddenly, she broke her silence with a strangled scream. "Oh my God. My house. My house is on fire." The irony of the situation was almost too rich. She had just wasted 2 minutes lecturing us about HOA rules, and now she was the one paying the price. "Then move the CR." I shouted. It was as though her brain had short-circuited. She spun around in frantic circles, patting her tracksuit pockets, fumbling with the key fob she just dropped. I can't. Where are my keys? I had them. Oh no, oh no, oh no." She scrambled on her hands and knees near the SUV, searching the asphalt like a desperate raccoon digging through garbage. My crew sat behind me in the truck, groaning louder with every passing second. "You've got to be kidding me," muttered Jackson, our ladder man. "We're losing the whole structure." Mike banged his fist against the dashboard. "At this rate, we'll be pulling a foundation out of the ashes." I could feel the rage boiling inside me. Every part of my training screamed at me to act, because when it comes to fire, hesitation is death. But here we were, being held hostage by the queen of pettiness herself. Karen finally found the keys and scrambled to her feet. She jammed them into the ignition, hands shaking, and tried to start the car. The SUV coughed once, then went silent. She screamed again. "It's not working." "Oh no, it won't start." I slammed the heel of my hand against the steering wheel. That was it. Enough was enough. I jumped down from the truck, boots hitting the pavement hard. Karen jumped like she thought I was about to tackle her, but I brushed past her without a word. I yanked the SUV's driver door open. She started to protest, something about personal property rights, but one look from me shut her up. I grabbed the gearshift, threw it into neutral, and turned back to my crew. "Push it." 4 firefighters piled out of the truck instantly. Together, we heaved against the SUV's frame. The tires squealed as it rolled backward just enough to clear the road. I jumped back into the truck and slammed it into gear. Karen wailed behind us like she'd just witnessed a crime. You can't just touch my car like that. That's against HOA rules." But the roar of the fire engine drowned her out as we surged forward, finally breaking into the neighborhood. The closer we got, the worse it looked. Flames were licking out of the second-story windows of Karen's pristine 2-story colonial. Black smoke poured from the roof, swirling into the night sky. Neighbors had already gathered in their yards, some clutching their phones, others filming the scene like it was a live TV show. We pulled up to the curb in front of the blaze, and my crew jumped into action. Hoses were unrolled, hydrants were cracked open, and ladders went up in seconds. This was muscle memory, years of training unleashed in a storm of precision and speed. And yet, as much as we tried to block it out, Karen was still there. She ran behind us, screaming in half-coherent bursts. "That's my house. Save it. Be careful with the lawn. Don't damage the siding. Oh my God, my jewelry is inside. My documents. Do you know how valuable my drapes are?" I ignored her. I had to. A good firefighter learns early that the job isn't about possessions. It's about lives. So my first question was to the crowd. "Anyone inside?" A neighbor shouted back, "Her husband's at work. No one else lives there but her." Good. At least it wasn't a rescue mission. That gave us some breathing room. We hit the fire hard, pounding the flames with water, trying to buy time before the entire roof collapsed. But it was clear from the start, this house wasn't going to be saved. The fire had eaten too deep, too fast. All we could do was contain it and stop it from spreading to the neighbors' properties. And through it all, Karen kept shrieking. She pulled at my sleeve as I directed the hose team. "You have to save my house. It's not fair. This can't be happening. Do something. I turned to her, finally letting some of my frustration slip. Ma'am, do you realize you delayed us? If we'd gotten here 2 minutes earlier, maybe we could have stopped it before it spread. Her face crumpled. She stammered, I didn't know it was my house. That's the problem. I snapped. You care more about rules than common sense. She gasped as though I'd slapped her. Then she backed away, tears welling in her eyes. Meanwhile, the neighbors whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others outright laughed, covering their mouths to hide it. The sight of the HOA president, the woman who had ticketed people for flower beds and fined them for leaving bikes outside, now reduced to a sobbing mess in front of her burning home, was a kind of poetic justice you couldn't script. One man muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Guess she should have let the fire truck through, huh?" The crowd chuckled, though they quickly quieted as the fire cracked louder and the roof finally gave way, collapsing inward with a roar. The flames shot higher, sparks raining into the night. Karen screamed again, falling to her knees in the driveway. No. My house. But by then, there was nothing left to save. The flames roared like an angry beast, consuming everything in their path. We had water blasting from 2 hoses now, ladders propped against the house, and my crew working with the rhythm of a machine. But it was clear within minutes. The house was a lost cause. No matter how much water we poured onto it, the fire only spat it back in hissing clouds of steam, devouring room after room until the structure groaned under its own weight. "Captain, it's gone," Mike shouted over the roar of the flames, his helmet shining in the firelight. I gave a grim nod. Focus on containment. Don't let it spread to the neighbors. That became our mission. Save the houses on either side. The one on the left was already getting scorched by the radiant heat, the paint bubbling like boiling sugar. But with a steady stream of water and a few well-placed blasts from the second hose, we created a barrier. The house on the right luckily had more breathing room. Karen, meanwhile, was unraveling completely. She paced the street barefoot now, her sneakers discarded somewhere, screaming at us between sobs. "You're not doing enough. Spray more water. Aim higher. My grandmother's china is in there. Do you know what that's worth?" Every time she opened her mouth, the neighbors' expressions grew darker. Some were annoyed, others almost gleeful. And I could tell why. This wasn't just karma, it was spectacle. You see, Karen had made enemies here. Real enemies. She had fined one neighbor $250 for having a lawn ornament shaped like a flamingo. She'd sent violation letters to another family because their children chalked drawings on the sidewalk. She'd even written up an elderly veteran for flying his American flag too high on the pole. And now, here she was, watching her own house collapse into itself while the people she had tormented stood by, arms crossed, whispering among themselves. She brought this on herself. Blocking a fire truck. What kind of idiot does that? Poetic justice right here. One woman, middle-aged, clutching her bathrobe tight, snorted so loudly it cut through the crackle of fire. Bet she tries to fine the fire department for water damage. That got a round of quiet laughter from the crowd. Karen heard it too. She whirled on them, face red and streaked with tears. "How dare you? This is a tragedy. I could sue all of you for negligence. You should have helped me." The laughter only got louder. A teenager actually pulled out his phone and shouted, "Smile, Karen. You're going viral." She screeched like a banshee and lunged toward him, but another neighbor pulled her back before she could snatch the phone. The teen just kept filming, narrating gleefully, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the HOA that tried to block the fire truck. And guess whose house is barbecue chicken now? Hers." I wanted to tell him to stop, but honestly, part of me didn't blame him. The whole thing was absurd, surreal. We were breaking our backs trying to control the blaze, and she was busy throwing tantrums like a spoiled child. Finally, as the roof caved in completely and the structure was engulfed beyond saving, I turned to her one last time. "Ma'am, you need to step back. This area isn't safe." She spat back. "Don't you tell me what to do. This is my property." I snapped. Maybe it wasn't professional, maybe it wasn't textbook firefighting conduct, but I couldn't take it anymore. Not anymore, I said coldly. That's just ash and rubble now. And you have no one to blame but yourself. The words hit her like a punch. She staggered, opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water, unable to find a comeback. By then, law enforcement had arrived. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. Two deputies got out, scanning the scene. One of them, Deputy Harris, was someone I knew well. He jogged over, jaw tight. "What the hell happened?" he asked me quietly. I filled him in quickly. The blocked entrance, the SUV, Karen refusing to move, the delay. His eyes narrowed with every word. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "She actually obstructed emergency access? That's a crime. That's reckless endangerment at minimum." Karen, hearing this, shrieked again. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I was protecting the community from damage." Harris raised an eyebrow. "Protecting the community by blocking the only fire truck that could save your own house?" The neighbors burst into laughter again, harsher this time, feeding off the irony like sharks in bloody water. Karen's face twisted. "They're all against me. This is harassment. I'll sue every single one of you." But Harris was done entertaining her. "Ma'am, step aside. If you keep interfering, we'll have to detain you." That shut her up for a few minutes, at least. By the time we got the flames under control, Karen's house was nothing more than a smoldering skeleton. Blackened beams jutted into the air like broken bones. The yard was soaked, her manicured hedges trampled under our boots and hoses. The SUV she had used to block us was splattered with ash and streaked with muddy water. And the neighbors? They lingered, whispering, some openly filming the aftermath. A few even pulled lawn chairs closer, like it was free evening entertainment. Karen sat on the curb now, rocking back and forth, muttering under her breath. Her clipboard was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos, and she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. For once, she wasn't in control. And the bitter truth was obvious. She had destroyed her own home. The sheriff took my full report. The neighbors gave theirs too, most of them eager to share their grievances about her behavior. And with every account, Karen's case looked worse. Not only had she obstructed us, but she had endangered the entire neighborhood. If the wind had been stronger, those flames could have jumped to 3, 4, maybe even 5 other houses. And the HOA? Oh, they weren't going to save her. They were already talking quietly among themselves, several members shaking their heads. One of them, a balding man in a golf shirt, said aloud, "She's done. We'll have her removed first thing at the emergency board meeting." Karen overheard that too, and she wailed like a child, burying her face in her ash-streaked hands. For once, nobody comforted her. The fire was finally out. Smoke drifted lazily into the night sky, glowing orange from the still smoldering embers. My crew was exhausted, drenched in sweat and soot, but the job was done. We'd kept the flames from spreading, and the rest of the neighborhood was safe. But the sight of Karen's home, now just a charred skeleton, was sobering even for us. Every house fire leaves behind a heavy silence, but this one was different. There wasn't grief hanging in the air. There was something sharper. Justice. Karen sat on the curb with her knees pulled to her chest, rocking back and forth like she could turn back time if she just wished hard enough. Her once pristine pink jogging suit was streaked with dirt and ash. She had no clipboard now, no power, no authority. Just a ruined home and the eyes of an entire neighborhood locked on her. Deputy Harris approached her, his boots crunching against the gravel. "Ma'am, we need to talk." Karen looked up, her face blotchy with tears. What do you mean? My house is gone. Haven't I suffered enough?" Harris's tone was steady, but firm. "You obstructed emergency services. You delayed a fire engine during an active house fire. That's reckless endangerment, and we're filing a report. You'll likely be facing charges." Karen's mouth opened and closed. Her voice cracked like shattered glass. "Charges? I was just doing my duty, protecting the neighborhood from damage. It wasn't my fault." The deputy shook his head. "You put lives at risk. If there had been kids inside, or if the fire had spread, we'd be talking about manslaughter charges right now." Her sobs turned into wails. "No, you can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president. That was when one of the HOA board members, the balding man in the golf shirt, stepped forward from the crowd. His voice carried sharp authority. Not anymore, you're not. Karen, you're officially removed. We're calling an emergency vote, and every single one of us is done with your reign of terror. The neighbors murmured in agreement, some outright clapping. Karen's head snapped toward them, eyes wild. You can't do this. I built this community. I kept you people in line. Kept us miserable, a woman shot back. You fined me $100 because my kid's bike was left on the driveway for 10 minutes. You harassed me about my flag, the veteran added, his arms crossed. You told me to repaint my shutters twice in 1 year, another man said. Because the shade of blue wasn't HOA approved. Each accusation was like a hammer pounding nails into her coffin. The crowd wasn't sympathetic. They were liberated. For the first time, they were standing against the tyrant who had made their lives miserable. Karen covered her ears, shaking her head furiously. No, no, no. You all loved me. You needed me. I was protecting property values. From what? The teen with the phone called out. Happiness. That earned a round of laughter so loud it drowned out her next scream. I stood back, watching the whole scene unfold, equal parts exhausted and grimly satisfied. Karen had tried to control everything around her. Rules, lawns, mailboxes, even us. But in the end, fire doesn't care about rules, and neither does karma. When the sheriff's office finally escorted her to the back of the cruiser, she kicked and fought like a toddler being dragged to bed. Her voice echoed through the street. You'll all regret this. I'll sue every one of you. I'll rebuild, you'll see. But nobody believed her. The only thing left of her empire was smoke and ash. The following weeks only cemented her downfall. The HOA formally expelled her, stripping her of every ounce of control. They even rescinded every fine she'd ever handed out, calling them illegitimate and abusive. Neighbors celebrated with a barbecue on the community green, a barbecue they pointedly invited the fire crew to attend. Karen didn't show her face at the meeting where the vote was announced. Rumor had it she'd moved in temporarily with a relative in another town, too humiliated to drive past the blackened lot where her house once stood. But her troubles weren't just with the HOA. The county filed charges against her for obstructing emergency services. She wasn't going to prison, at least not for long. But the fines were steep, the court appearances humiliating, and her reputation shredded. Word spread fast. Local news picked up the story, dubbing her the HOA president who blocked a fire truck. Footage from the teen's phone went viral online, with millions watching her meltdown. Memes flooded social media, captions like, "When you block the fire truck, but it's your house burning," plastered over her stunned expression. Her name became a punchline. I wish I could say I felt pity for her. That losing everything taught her humility. But if I'm honest, I didn't. Because Karen had made a choice that night. She had decided that a clipboard and a set of arbitrary rules mattered more than common sense, more than safety, more than human lives. And fate had answered her with the one thing she valued most: control, going up in flames. For me and my crew, it was just another call, another fire. But it became a story we told often, half as a cautionary tale, half as dark humor. Whenever a rookie groaned about dealing with difficult homeowners, Mike would grin and say, "Hey, at least they didn't block us in and torch their own house." And every time, we'd all laugh, shaking our heads at the memory of the night karma came roaring down in fire and smoke. In the end, Karen's downfall wasn't caused by bad luck or fate. It wasn't even the fire itself. It was her. Her arrogance. Her obsession with control. Her blindness to the simple truth that sometimes rules need to bend when lives are at stake. She learned that the hard way, watching her empire crumble into ashes, surrounded not by allies, but by neighbors who cheered at her fall. And me? I'll never forget the look on her face when she realized the fire we were racing to stop was hers. That instant, when her smug smile collapsed into horror, was the perfect image of poetic justice, the queen of the HOA brought down by the very rules she worshipped.